Well, I was born and raised here. I am a Detroit girl. I have probably lived through a few of the decades that you just traveled through with Jonathan. And my performance career started here. I was about 11 when I got into my first singing group. And we did studio work. And then, real life took over. You want to be a kid, you don't want that type of pressure on you. And my parents didn't want to put me in show business just yet. But I had a history of playing instruments, piano, violin, French horn, all that. I mean, they even threw me on ice skates, figure skating, because Debbie Thomas was the black figure skater of the 80s, and I wanted to be her. So I've always been in a public forum performing in some capacity. Coming out of high school, I ended up becoming a radio personality, which is actually what brought me into my acting career. My voice on the airwaves gave me opportunity to do voiceovers, and then I did commercials, and then plays, and then fast forward to now, TV, film, and the rest is history. So
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you have a strong musical background and broadcasting background too in this very Detroit town.
I do.
Motor town.
Yeah.
Wow. If you could tell me about some of your biggest influences growing up music-wise, who would they be?
Ella Fitzgerald, who I adore.
Yes.
I love her. I mean, she's never missed a pitch. If you listen to her sing, it's just perfect. My mom, who sang for 10 years in the Michigan Opera Theater.
What?
So, yeah, I was a kid going to the famed Masonic Temple, watching her on stage in all these different costumes, and from Tosca to Madame Butterfly, Carmen, she did all of them. She did like 11 or 12 shows there. So I was in the audience at 6 and 7, like, and that inspired me. But I didn't really know who I was until coming out of high school. All through high school, because I went to the Detroit Fine Arts School, and I played instruments there. I didn't act. I didn't sing. I was just an instrumental because everyone was cool, and we were kind of like the renegades of the school.
Yeah, yeah. I was band kid too.
Yeah, so, band is like wild, and, we're fun and everything. But coming out of high school, I ended up going into broadcasting, and I don't know. I don't know when it started. Al Pacino was the first actor that I began to really study his work. And not just, the more popular films like Scarface. Like I was watching Dog Day Afternoon, I was watching Serpico, paying close attention to what he was doing. And that inspired me to go to the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute in West Hollywood, California. That's kind of when I got bit, so to speak, by that acting bug. And I was able to tap into my ability. And all the time I was on the radio, I was always going into character. I mean, I could record myself as multiple people and act like they were callers calling in when it was really me.
Wow.
So my mom is like, well, you've already been acting. You're very good at imitating people. Go for it. See what happens. And I discovered, this is where I'm supposed to be. So,
I mean, seeing that kind of unbreakable tie a lot of African American community has with music.
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of African American children or families have a privilege of being surrounded by the rich history of quality music that rewrote the music history, right?
Oh, yeah.
Did you grow up, listening to a lot of musicians, African American musicians?
I listened to everyone.
You did?
Yes. I wanted to have all of Michael Jackson's babies at 5. I had the Michael Jackson button, and I had the jacket, the leather jacket. Okay, so he was a huge influence at that time for me. I learned the Thriller dance. I probably know a little bit of it now still.
Crazy.
But, I was like 5 and 6. And my mom, because she used to sing at jazz clubs, she would have her rehearsals in the living room with all these musicians that would come over. So I was hearing, upright bass and keyboards and, drum sets. And my mom doing, everything from Lena Horne songs to Billie Holiday songs right there in the living room. Then they'd throw me and my brother to the babysitter so her and my dad could go to this show and she could perform.
Right.
So I was surrounded by, the music that was pop in the 80s, 90s, as well as what my mom was doing in classical opera and her jazz. But, you know, I entered into the church, which is where you'll find a lot of influence in the African American community, probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes. Soul, gospel, everything, right?
That's church folk who really, you know, trained me how to reach deep down and get that power, you know, how to invite God, because black folks, we're spiritual people, you know, we love the Lord, and just reaching down and having your voice and your interpretation of any song to have some meaning, some purpose, instead of just singing notes, you know.
Right.
So
that's why it's called soulful.
Absolutely.
I see.
So, you know, just stemming from the church and listening to Clark sisters who are from here, and another good friend of mine, Jay Moss, who's, you know, related to them. He's a fantastic gospel singer. Just listening to how they interpret music and really put their all into it, and then knowing how to sit back and just let it flow. You know, you'll find a lot of your African American artists, even from the, you know, earlier time periods, will refer back to the church as their influence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I heard you are so kind enough to be singing a song for me so that I get a full picture of the culture. What kind of song would you be singing?
Well, I just had the lovely honor of playing Billie Holiday, also known as Lady Day, in a show called Lady Day at Emerson Bar and Grill.
Wow.
The 6-time Tony Award-winning African-American actress Audra McDonald.
I love her too.
I love her too.
Yeah.
Played Lady Day in this same show. So I was very honored when the Jewish Ensemble Theater asked me to play it. And there's talks now of putting the show on tour. I am very grateful to be up for a Best Actress Award for the Wild Awards this year for playing Billie Holiday. And I was thinking, one of the songs that kind of tie in to what you learned today, that she was most famous for, amongst many songs that she was famous for, is a song called Strange Fruit.
Strange.
And it's a reflection of the lynchings that took place that she would see as a child.
Wow.
And it originated as a poem, but she was asked to put it to music, and I mean, the rest is history. So
That's
I'm going to
crazy.
sing that song for you.
That's awesome. And I know she has a tie with Detroit too, right?
She absolutely
Yeah.
does. Oh my goodness, she used to frequent all these places here. You know, we have a very famous spot called Baker's Keyboard Lounge, and it's been open since like the 40s. She's performed there. She performed in Paradise Valley, the areas that Jonathan took you to. She used to come to Detroit quite often, and when she came here, she would go straight to the black community,
Right.
because, you know, there was still a lot of segregation. And here, there were black-owned hotels
Right.
that would welcome her and expect her. And, you know, you could catch her anytime with her and her dog, both of them with a fur coat on, girl. Like, she was very sassy.
Living life. Yeah.
Very confident, you know.
Just before I let you go to sing something for me,
Sure.
So Detroit, in a lot of people's mind, are defined differently, right? So for people outside of Detroit, it's Motor Town, Motor City.
You know, and it's Motor City and it's Motown.
Motown, yeah,
Yeah.
Motor City and Motown. Yeah, those are some of the nicknames that I've heard of. This is
Yeah.
my first time actually visiting Detroit.
Welcome.
Thank you. But I just want to know, knowing that there's such a vibrant African American community present in Detroit, how would you define Detroit?
I would define Detroit as strong. We've been through a lot. We've been through a whole lot. From the very beginnings, the origin of Detroit with the Native Americans and the French, all the way up until now. And then African Americans having this as a stop along the Underground Railroad. Some of us stayed, some of us crossed over to Canada. The Great Migration, families coming up here for work with Henry Ford,
Right.
you know, and then kind of branching off into their own businesses and schools, to the crime segment that unfortunately Detroit still gets a bad rap for. when that time came and went to now, you know, where it's become a melting pot again of different ethnicities and people who are now coming here from different parts of the world, not just the nation, to rebuild and refurbish and join in the community. We've been through a lot. We've been through bad leadership. We've been through good leadership. You know, we've had riots here where half of the city was torn down, and you can see remnants of it still on certain, you know, in certain areas of the city. But then, you know, there are so many beautiful areas of Detroit where you can see the community has come together. One in particular is the Birdwood Wall.
Okay, Birdwood Wall.
The Birdwood Wall, if you go now, it's a beautiful wall covered in murals, and it's now like a tourist attraction. But what people don't know is that wall originated to separate whites from blacks.
Was it a segregation wall?
It was a segregation wall.
Holy moly.
You know, so it's little things like that that are a part of history of Detroit, where if you drive around, pretty much everything that you see it's got some history tied to it, something to it.
Right.
But the beautiful part is ugly things like that are being made beautiful by everyone coming together. And you can get online now and see where there's Asian, white, black, Hispanic coming together, all painting on that wall saying, hey, no, we're not segregating. That's gone out the window. We're together, we're a family, you know. That's kind of why you see these shirts now that say, I don't know, something about, what do the shirts say? Detroit?
Detroit is the new black.
Detroit is the new black.
I love it.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
A lot of slogans. I think we saw one too, Daniel, right? The slogan that you liked? That said,
Nothing stops Detroit.
yeah, nothing stops Detroit. That's
Nothing
on
does stop Detroit. Yeah, we're survivors here.
Great.
Awesome.
Do you have anything, Brian?
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree, pastoral scene from the gallant south, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rains to gather, for the winds to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop.
Wow. Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you.
I'm really emotional right now.
You ought to hear Billy sing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have to listen to her actual record, right?
Please do, because her interpretation will give you goosebumps. And I think it's because, no, I'm not even going to say I think. I'm sure it's because it's coming from a place of relation. She grew up in that era where she said just walking through the forest, you could see a person of color hanging by a noose, just randomly. you know, and that kind of racism really upset her. This is someone that, you know, was told that she had to take the freight elevator going into a club, and she was the singer. She was the performer. She was the star, but she's got to take the freight elevator. You know, it's the same way they told Dorothy Dandridge, you can't swim in the pool, but you can entertain us. Wow. And she got mad and stuck her foot in it. And then the next morning, they had drained the pool of water and people were scrubbing the walls of the pool. So this is that era where, you know, and she had a much more volatile personality where, you know, if someone disrespected her, she's been known to pick up a shot glass and turn it over and just pow, pow, pow. You know, she was a tough girl, you know. When she was singing this song, I believe it was one of the clubs that she was performing in, someone drew an obscene photo. I don't know of what, but I remember hearing in one of her documentaries, she got mad and she just picked up a chair, just beat the guy up, you know. But her background gave her her edges. You know, this is someone that was raped as a child. She grew up with her mom, who was a teenage mom, and, you know, they worked a brothel. Sometimes they worked in it, you know. She went through a few different men that presented themselves as being love interests when really they were using her. So this type of person is going to have some edge to her. But if I could jump back in time and meet her, I think I would appreciate her realness. And her music, people love her so much because she's not just singing. Right. She's interpreting. Like, she's interpreting. Interpreting is not a word. But she's interpreting, you know. And you hear her life in her songs. You hear her struggles in her songs. You hear everything, her love, her pain, everything. And I believe that's what true music is really supposed to be about.
Yeah, I felt like I was listening to a story as you were singing.
And you are.
Listening to a song.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.